1st, 2016 in Bridges County.
Councilman Esser?
Here.
Councilman Bunch?
Here.
Councilwoman Clancy?
Here.
Vice Mayor Lamar?
Here.
Councilman McGuire?
Present.
Councilman Lipsky?
Yes.
Mayor Francia?
Here. Would the young man who has his arm in a sling use his free arm to lead everyone in the Pledge of Allegiance? Matthew Pega.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Under public announcements, Groundhog Day tomorrow, don't forget that. All of the public, okay?
Dan Devlin?
Members of the Cave Creek Town Council. My name is Dan Devlin. I'm the chairman of the recently formed Canyon Ridge Estates Trails Committee. As some of you already know, at our HOA general meeting this January 11th, the Canyon Ridge Estates community voted in a new board of directors. At that same time, the Canyon Ridge Estate Board and homeowners, in a majority vote, approved moving forward with the Surrey Hill Trail reroute onto Lot 37, as well as adopting the town's non-motorized definition for the entire Canyon Ridge Estates trail system. We are currently working out various details with the town's trails department, and we look forward to working with the town and the entire Cave Creek community towards an expeditious execution of the trail reroute. On behalf of the entire Canyon Ridge Estates community, I'd like to thank the mayor, the town council, the town manager, and the trails department, and the entire Cave Creek community for their patience while Canyon Ridge Estates put its proverbial house in order. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to address the town council and those in attendance this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Devlin. This is good news.
Thanks.
Ms. Harry?
Carrie Smith?
My name is Kerry Smith. I live on Continental Mountain Estates Drive in Cave Creek. Mayor, Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm speaking about the proposed general plan, which I understand serves as a template for future land use decisions in the town of Cave Creek. My understanding is the Planning Commission, in their meeting on January 28th, concluded that public input on the plan was sufficient from their perspective to forward this draft general plan to the town council. I respectfully request that the council consider more time for public input. There are very significant changes to be made in land use under the new general plan. And I feel, and I think a number of other citizens feel, it would be very desirable to have more input to those decisions. Unfortunately, the reason I feel this way is that I've lost confidence in the town's planning staff. I feel that the town council has been placed in a reactive mode due to a series of unfortunate decisions. The most recent of these is a decision on properties on Fleming Springs Road, the Schultz property. Some time ago, the Planning Commission agreed to allow the owners to undertake commercial activity at this location, and several other owners, nearby neighbors, have showed the council on various times the disposition of the land. At the time this was done, the agreement with the owners was that the vehicles to be repaired would be garaged so that there would be no disruption to the property and appearances. That didn't happen, and vehicles of all types were littered on the property, and neighbors have complained. in response to the violation of the original agreement. I was here when the town council agreed with the owners at the end of the 2015 fiscal year and suggested that they get together with the owners of the property and try to seek some equitable resolution of the problem. And it's my understanding that it was agreed that the Schultz would remove the vehicles, or at least garage them, as the original proposal suggested. That didn't happen, and an extension was given to the Schultzes to allow them more time to do it until January 18th, 2016. It still has not happened. And there was a unique opportunity to use an incentive with the Schultz to encourage them to do it. They apparently applied for an application to add more berms to their property. And instead of using that as an incentive to get them to act, they were given the permit and nothing was happening. Thus, my conclusion is that often the staff acts in ways that are inconsistent with the council's wishes, and I see the new draft general plan as giving more discretion to the staff. So I prefer to have public input, if that's at all possible, on the general plan. Thank you very much, and I'm sorry I went over.
That's okay, Mr. Smith. Town manager, the tentative schedule for council regarding the general plan.
Mayor and council, we scheduled 2 workshops. One is for February 22nd, and the second will be February 29th. And then at that time, depending how far you are, you'll determine what the public hearing is. And Kerry can give those dates at that time.
Okay. Ms. Karen?
The council meeting would be March 21st.
I'll call the public is still open. Thank you. Ms. Karen?
I have no other
Does
speakers.
anyone wish to speak? I'll call the public is open. Do you wish to speak?
No.
Oh, all right, council, we proceed then to the consent. Item on the agenda, and that's the approval of the January 4th, 2016 regular council meeting minutes. Motion to approve.
Approved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Motion has been made to approve and second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes clearly have it. Thank you, council. On to the general agenda items. Mark, can you hear us okay?
Yes.
Okay. Council discussion and direction to hand over the Wild West Days event to the Cave Creek Merchants and Event Association. Ian, are you presenting?
I'm not.
I think. Town manager, are you presenting?
Mayor and council had a discussion during the retreat. Part of the discussion during the retreat was our future involvement in the Wild West Days. Even though I think we had agreed last year to do it for a year or two, we did it 1 year. We believe we helped the event, providing different alternatives, but at the same time, which is too close to Taste of Cave Creek and other things that the staff is doing. So our recommendation at that time during the retreat was to hand it over, and I believe the CCMEA is very interested in doing that. I know they have 2 representatives here to speak on their behalf and present a proposal to you folks for them to take it over.
Okay, let's go to the presentation. Mr. Paper. Nice outfit.
Thank you, I dressed just for you. The Merchants Association has been involved with the Wild West Days, Merchants Association in various forms, since its inception in approximately the year 2000. Prior to that, it was October West Fest that was founded by the Black Mountain Merchants Association, and we needed to do a complete and total revamp. Taking a break for a year for us was a good thing to allow us to get reorganized, resettled, and restructured, which we have done. And now we are looking at going forward full steam ahead.
Questions from council? Councilman Lipsky, questions?
No, thank you, Mayor.
You got it. Councilman McGuire, question.
Yes, this comes after a question that I asked when we were meeting in the executive session, public session, and that is, will there be a financial liability to the town involved in this?
Other than the request that we make on an annual basis for $10,000 to help with the costs, then there won't be any.
Thank you.
Additional questions from council? Anything else, Mr. Baker?
Yes, sir.
My discussion also was, I thought we'd try to look at doing some of the events under the municipal insurance.
Yes, that's, the biggest expense that we ran into the last time we did it was the $9,900 that it cost for the insurance policy. Many years ago, there was a situation where we had to, at the last minute, jump under the town's liability policy, which worked for us. That is, if that's a doable thing through town, that would be a major savings of money.
And we will know about that when, town manager?
My thoughts are when they submit the application to oversee it, we would submit that to the
okay.
risk. And under our event provision, we would include like the parade and maybe some other events.
I noticed your projection for insurance is 9,000 plus. What's driving the cost? That it's a parade? There's a parade attached to the event, or what is it?
That there's a parade, that it's Wild West Days. The insurance companies, apparently there are only 3 left in the United States that will insure events like this. Consider it to be more of a rodeo than, because we're calling it Wild West, than anything else, along with all the different events that take place throughout town rather than just at a single location. So there are different venues that have to be covered all the way around.
So if we called it laid back West Day, the insurance would be
You know, it's, who knows, it's entirely possible. I can't predict insurance companies.
Usually you're half go. You know, a little bit too much. Councilman has a question.
It's really for Peter. Peter, if it's 9,900, does that mean it's under the $10,000 cap? And it would not come back to the council?
Well, the cap, Councilor, so the cap is now 25,000. It would not come back to the council.
Okay.
And it would really be under a event provision of the insurance. And I'm not sure what the cost is. Not till they actually submit a permit, spell out kind of what they're going to do, what would be done on what we call public lands. We would not be insuring, obviously, things that happened at the bars or the dances, anything alcohol related. So when I know what those factors are, then we submit and get a better idea.
The numbers are to be determined.
Correct.
Pretty much the only thing that would take place on public lands would be the parade and parking in that little parking area, the new one that I kind of forgot about.
Mayor, if I could ask, the risk pool, we've been trying to provide this kind of insurance for events. At your event, will there be any weapons?
There will be recreationists, so yes, there would be.
We just ran into that in Tombstone, and so, and actually a guy was shot. And so what we need to do is the pool can provide very cost effective. I can get your name, I'll put you in contact with the pool.
We'll go through care.
Okay.
We'll run through care. And any of the reenactments he's talking about would not happen on public property.
No, they'd be happening on private
Private
property.
show.
Okay.
They would not.
I think the pool can provide a cost of far less than $9,000.
Okay. Councilman Lynch, are you good? Yeah. Okay. Anything else, Mark?
I can't think of anything.
Okay.
Thank you.
Public comment is still open on agenda item number 1. Okay, hearing and seeing none, I will make the motion to hand over Wild West Days event to the Cave Creek Merchants and Events Association. Second. Okay. This came up in the workshop and was thoroughly discussed, and a couple of years ago there was a hiccup with the event, and it did not flatter the town. And so the town took it over, but it was always with the understanding we were just doing this on a temporary basis. It's back in the hands of the Cave Creek Merchants, and which is a good place for it. There's a lot riding on this. Our expectations, of course, are high, but I will support this transition back to the Merchants Association. Councilman Bunch, you want a second?
Yeah, looking forward to seeing them take it back over and not having quite as much
participation by staff. And I don't suppose we call the town too tough to govern days, could we? You know, we used to be that anyway. We kind of still are. All right.
Anything else from council? Councilman Lipsky, anything?
Yeah, I think this gets Wild West Days back where it belongs. I am completely behind the motion.
Okay, if there's nothing else from council, I'll go to the vote. All those in favor of the motion, please signify. Did you have something, buddy? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes clearly have it. Thank you, Councilman Lipsky, 7-0. Agenda item number 2, council discussion and approval of resolution R 2016-05, authorizing amendments to the existing loan agreement previously entered into on April the 18th, 2008, between the town and the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority to improve the town's Desert Hills water system. Mr. Weddington.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is actually brought forward by the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority of Arizona in order to remedy a requirement in our loan that exists now where we are not in compliance. This is similar to an action that we took back in 2013 where this doesn't change any of our loan balances. This has no financial impact. It's simply a financial measurement that we're not currently in compliance with regard to the source of our debt service payments as identified in the loan agreement as it stands. So what this would do is just change that pledge to a pledge of excise tax and where we have sufficient revenues to cover the debt service requirement, and then we would be in compliance with all the provisions of all our loans.
Questions from council? Councilman McGuire.
Are the two water systems that we have currently paying for themselves in terms of income expenditures?
Yes, currently there is sufficient revenue to cover the debt service payments that are being charged to Cape Creek Water System and Desert Hills Water System. Thank you for the question, Councilman.
Councilwoman Nancy, question?
Going back to the heart of what he just asked, if one defaults when you combine these loans, does it affect, if they're both running and pretty much making money, if something were to happen to one of them under the combined loans, would one have to cover the other?
We have a debt service reserve that would be the first source of funds to pay debt service if we are not able to generate sufficient revenues to pay the loans in a particular fiscal year.
Okay, so then that leads to another question, which would be, is that a yes? Are we saying if they were split and Desert Hills?
We would hopefully have time to find a remedy that would resolve the issue if we have a lack of funds or a lack of revenues.
Now, the heart of my question is combining them. It puts them all in the same basket. So if one starts to default, I won't choose one, we're responsible. If they were separated, would that put the other water group in a problem? And how would you handle if one defaulted when they're combined, and how would you handle if they were where they are now separate?
There's no restriction for how the debt service gets paid. As we are the town of Cape Creek, we are responsible for all of the loans. The Water Infrastructure Finance Authority might suggest a different remedy than one that we would like, but we have the flexibility to do several things to generate revenues from any number of sources to pay the debt service. If the existing net system operating revenues aren't enough to pay the debt service, you could increase rates. You could pay from general fund revenues as the excise tax pledge infers. And if that's not sufficient, you could find ways to increase general fund revenues. So.
And that would be the same regardless if they were all under one with Alona, or they were the way they are at the present time.
Yes, we would not want to default in any case.
Councilman Lipsky, question? Councilman Lipsky?
No, Mayor, thank you very much.
Okay, anything else for council? Anything else, Mr. Weddington?
I have no other comments, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. There's public comment on agenda item number 2, Ms. Carey.
I have no speakers.
Does anyone wish to, Mr. Smith?
I'm sorry, I didn't realize the full implications of this agenda item. According to the 2015 budget for the town of Cave Creek, it may be that I'm misunderstanding the way the materials are reported, but it appears that 18% of the expenses associated with the 2 water systems and the wastewater system are cross-subsidized by town revenues. They're not covered by the revenues associated with the 2 water systems and the wastewater treatment facility. So I was confused by Mr. Willington's comments. So that, if it would be possible to get some clarification on that, that would be very useful. Secondly, this change basically encumbers a fraction of the sales tax revenue. Encumbers is probably the wrong word, but sets it aside to meet the reserve requirement for the loan. And therefore, it reduces the discretion the town has on those resources for other uses, even though they're not, strictly speaking, encumbered. They have to be available for the reserve, which means that if you're going to use those revenues for other things, such as open space acquisition or whatever, you're precluded from doing that by this action, if I understand it correctly. Thank you.
Mr. Smith? Mr. Smith? I got lost in your logic there a little bit. Could you re-explain that? I don't see how.
I'm just, the provisions of the loans, as explained, this came up at an earlier time last year, and so I looked at it pretty carefully at that point. And there are 2 issues. The first issue is making the payments on the loans as required by the loan. The second is a requirement for a certain reserve, a certain larger amount of money that has to be identified as available to service the loan in the event of some unforeseen activity. And right now, the reserve that's available from the revenues provided by the water system is not sufficient to meet that second requirement. And that's the reason why I understand WIFA is requesting that another source of revenue be put before them as a avenue to meet that requirement. In fact, it was, I believe, the town manager who explained that to me in December, because it seemed I didn't understand why we had to do this. Well, if I'm correct, if we put that in reserve for this purpose, we can't use it again in reserve for another purpose. In other words, the revenues are held to meet this obligation and can't then be used to meet other obligations. That was what my reasoning was on that. As far as the first part was concerned, it was just confusion in the part of the 2015 annual report. As I read the items, the expenses associated with the 2 water companies and the wastewater company exceeded the revenues that came from those sources by approximately 18%. So I assumed that that had to be coming from the town's general revenue. Thank you.
Mr. Weddington, anything?
Yes, Mayor, there's quite a few concepts around, floating around in those comments. The reserve is like the down payment, except in this case, for a house, except in this case, we made the down payment, we have the down payment set aside. That money's already set aside. The source of money is like your wages that come in for a home loan. But let's say you have more than enough to pay your home loan payment, you decide to do other things, there's no restriction for that. So what we're saying here is that the source of revenue isn't up to the financial indicator that's required by WIFA on the Desert Hills water system. So we're just switching the source of revenue or income type to a different income type so that we meet that reserve requirement. I mean, I'm sorry, we meet the pledged revenue requirement. It has to be for excise tax. If you can show that you have 200% excise taxes, 200% of your debt service annual debt service payment That's what WIFA looks for. And net system operating revenues have to be 120%. In the case of Desert Hills and Cape Creek Water System, while they generate enough revenue to cover their costs in most years, the wastewater system does run at a deficit, and that's where the source of the required transfer exists. However, both Cape Creek Water System and Desert Hills Water System over the past years have not generated sufficient revenues in order to have built up that down payment. So what the general fund has done already is lended money to the water systems to establish that down payment, that reserve amount that we hold aside in case of there is insufficient revenues to pay the debt service. So I hope that explains it.
It does. Town manager.
I just, one point there. The reserves, it's around 4.6 million. On average, we ship over 1.2 to 1.6 million to cover the cost for that. Mr. Smith and Robert were talking about. Our goal is when the WIFA loans for 10 years, in 2017, we'll extend or change those terms, which will reduce our annual cost on that, and hopefully that over by $1 million. So that'll bring us more in a financial alignment for actual revenues and debt structure. But there's going to be a year out from now. But this is kind of the first step in my mind, getting at least the terms and conditions that we're requiring under the current situation, that we can align with those.
Okay.
That's all.
Public comment is still open. Anyone else wishes to speak on this? Katha?
Katja Kinsel. Nice to address you tonight. My question is though, that the resolution seems like it deals with the Desert Hills Water Company, but I heard wastewater treatment plant. Please clarify. Can I ask?
My discussion only was to Mr. Smith, because we talked about the 18%. And when we look at utilities overall, the two water systems and the wastewater, that's the 18, it's about 4. We should, it varies from year to year, depending on revenue, it's about 1.2 to 1.6 million.
Okay, because I understand the resolution as I read it, and I agreed with it, but then all of a sudden I heard wastewater treatment plant was included in the revenue stream.
Not in this, we were talking debt, and that's part of our debt structure.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, that's all I want to.
Public comment is still open. Let me come back to council for a motion. Councilman Bunce, thank you.
Move to approve resolution R 2016-05, a resolution of the council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, authorizing amendments to the existing loan agreement previously entered into to improve the town's Desert Hills water system.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, Councilman Bunch.
Obviously, we're just doing this to make WIFA happy because they're not thrilled with where the source of the rainy day emergency funds to cover the payments in case something drastic happens. So we're just shifting this around to make them happy. And hopefully this will do it. And 2017 comes up, we can do some other things to make ourselves a little bit better looking.
Councilman McGuire, you have a second?
Yes, I'll echo what Councilman Bunch said. It's good to get our revenues in line with our debts, and look forward to the future.
Councilman Lipsky, anything?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Anything else from council? Since this has financial implication, carry the roll, please.
Councilman Esser?
Yes.
Councilman Bunch?
Yes.
Councilwoman Clancy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lamar?
Yes.
Councilman McGuire?
Yes.
Councilman Lipsky?
Yes.
Mayor Francie?
Yes, by a vote of 7-0, the motion clearly passes. Thank you, council. On to the third and final of the agenda item. First amendment. There we go. No, I got the wrong page in front of the other. Council discussion and approval of resolution R 2016-06, authorizing the mayor to approve a first amendment to a development agreement between the town of Cave Creek Town and Desert Edge Development LLC and Arizona Limited Liability Company developer. Ian.
Thank you, Mayor. When this development agreement was first created, it had the conditions that it would run with the land but would expire in 10 years. This council amended the agreement last year and removed the condition that the agreement would expire, so therefore it runs with the land. When staff went to get the signatures for that amendment to the development agreement, we found that the ownership had reverted back to the original owner. So staff was not able to make that change. You have to bring it back to this council for an amendment to the First Amendment. Therefore, this development agreement currently reflects the current ownership, Carefree Consultants, and it clears up the record on the development agreement.
Questions from council? Any questions, Councilman Lipsky?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Okay, anything else?
No, sir.
There is public comment on agenda item number 3. Second.
Mr. Mayor, just a question, when I read the agenda.
Come to the podium, sir, so your comments are recorded.
Gary Pace, North 53rd Place. Just a bit of information, when I look at the agenda tonight, it just didn't explain where the property is.
I agree.
That's all I
To
want.
identify the property.
I can certainly identify the property. There are 3 parcels just south of the Tumbleweed Hotel, north of Parkway, west of Schoolhouse Road. Through the development agreement, the town was allowed to change the general plan and rezone one parcel in Andorra Wash to open space and permanently change it on our map. Shifted density from the south side of the property to the north side of the property for all future development.
Okay. Anything else from our citizens? Okay, now a motion. Councilman Bunch?
Sure. Move to approve resolution R 2016-06, a resolution of the mayor and town council of the town of Cave Creek, Arizona, authorizing the mayor to approve a first amendment to the development agreement between the town of Cave Creek, parentheses town, and Desert's Edge Development LLC and Arizona Limited Liability Company, parentheses developer.
Sorry.
Motion made and seconded. Councilman Bunch?
Yeah, we just straightening out some paperwork.
Vice Mayor Lamar?
Just want to compliment Ernie on his quick reading.
Hand over underbed.
Yeah, well.
Councilman Lipsky, anything?
No, Mayor, I appreciate the attention here on the phone.
You bet. You bet. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes clearly have it, 7-0. Thank you, council. Again, Groundhog Day today. Tomorrow, don't forget it. Motion to adjourn, council. Thank you, council. Have a good evening, Mark.